This Avalanche safety report is brought to you by Mountain TV. Watch Mountain TV anywhere with our free Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV apps. Learn more at mtn-tv.com.
We're here with our weekly exclusive with Brian from the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, CAIC. Brian, great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having us back. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, of course. Now, right in the thick of winter here, we got through kind of a big spike right around January 19th. I know you want to talk about that. And I was out the other day snowshoeing. I told you before we came on here with my wife, and literally, thanks to you, have been more educated about these different snow levels and snow conditions. And I could feel it, Brian, the soft snow, then harder than soft. And that's just me out on a snowshoe run. So this stuff is really, really making a lot of sense.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I know all this snowpack talk and talk of layers and things like that can seem a little bit esoteric, but this is something you can really just feel as you're moving around in the backcountry. You're just walking over the snowpack. You know that sometimes you can walk and the snowpack is really supporting you. That means you're on the slab. In other places, you break through and you can actually feel that really weak, sugary snow at the bottom where the slab is not supporting you. And that's really kind of stuff that's easy to feel when you're out moving around in the backcountry.
And I know as you've got a lot to go over today, and I know, again, we chatted before we came on here, that conditions really can change depending on where you are. So you might be in Vail and everything's fine. Then you head over to Keystone the next day, and because of the snow level depths, things can really change depending on where you are.
Yeah, and that's really the headline right now, is that the avalanche conditions right now are heavily dictated by how much snow is on the ground. And snow depth can change quite dramatically over fairly short distances. So let me dive into a few of the details that kind of paints that picture of where we're sitting right now. Big, heavy snowfall that lasted seemingly forever for a good part of December and into through most of January has kind of come to an end for the time being, and that has allowed the avalanche danger to ease. And so you can see that most of the mountains of Colorado are currently sitting at moderate danger or level 2 out of 5, reflected in just the avalanche activity. So you can see here we've had avalanche activity around the state. But since the spike on the 19th here on the left side of the bottom panel, you can see it's really trickled off over the last 6 or 7 days. And this has allowed the avalanche danger to ease in the absence of big loading events. And like we said, the avalanche danger is very much dictated by how much snow is on the ground currently. And here we go. Start by showing a map of this is essentially the snow water equivalent, which is just how much water you'd have if you melted the entire snowpack. So it's really indicative of how much snow is sitting on the ground. And this paints the picture of kind of these 3 distinct bins. And so if you look at these really deep blue areas here, these are the really deep and strong snowpack areas. So all the stuff up around Steamboat into the flat tops. Here you can see the Grand Mesa, that deep portion of the Elk Mountains, and then down near Wolf Creek Pass and a few other spots in the southern San Juan Mountains. In these areas, the snowpack is so deep and really strong that the weak layers that formed in early November are very hard for us to impact as people traveling over the snow surface. On the other end of that spectrum, you've got these kind of reds and browns, and there the snowpack is so shallow that in many places we're missing that slab. So what we're looking for is kind of that Goldilocks zone, which are represented by these kind of orange, yellow, and green parts. And you can see that's a pretty big swath of the state. There's a lot of green, orange, and yellow from the San Juans up through the shallower portions of the Elk Mountains, the Sawatch Range, everything through Summit County, all the way up through the Front Range. And that is the Goldilocks zone where we've got just the right depth. And it kind of looks like this. So we've got cohesive slabs of snow that are anywhere from kind of 2 to 4 feet thick, sitting over this weak snow that formed in November. And here you can see it's broken down by storm systems that happened in late December and early January near the surface. We had the snowfall that fell in earlier December, making up kind of the mid-pack slab, and then this old weak snow on the ground. And here's what that looks like when you actually get an avalanche breaking on the field, out in the field. So in this case, we've got a slab that broke about 3.5 feet deep. And you can see that weak snow near the ground is just kind of pouring out. It's a very weak foundation. And that's why we're seeing avalanches. And so I wanted to show you this video here of one of our forecasters in the Elk Mountains, right in this Goldilocks zone. And he's dug out a big column here and he shows you what an avalanche would look like if you got one to break.
Hey everyone, Dylan here from the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. I'm up here on a northeast facing slope near the tree line in Capitol Creek inside the Elk Mountains. And we've been walking around all day here and have gotten very few signs of instability, not very much shooting cracks, not very many collapses, but we know we have a really poor snowpack structure. So we're going to do a roosh block test here and see if we can get a big block to slide, kind of indicating the kind of avalanche we can trigger if we do find that sweet spot. So this is the exact problem we're dealing with right now. We've been walking around all day, really haven't seen any of those signs of instability. But if you do find that sweet spot and trigger an avalanche, you're gonna get the entire season snowpack to go down slope, failing on these weak, faceted layers at the bottom of the snowpack that exist on most slopes these days.
There's a lot of places in Colorado which fit into that Goldilocks zone, which is why it's going to be really important to check your local forecast for where you're going, so you know kind of where the snowpack sits with respect to the snowpack depth. And then the last little bit here is I just showed kind of the storms that have been rolling through this last week, and then are going to continue through the end of the work week. Little dribs and drabs of snow here, which is not enough to impact the avalanche danger. But you can see late Thursday and into Friday, Steamboat is again picking up a little bit more snow. And so we need to be cautious about instabilities in the storm snow. So we're going to want to be looking for wind drifted slabs near ridgeline, particularly up in that Steamboat zone as we move towards the weekend. And here's a really good illustration of what those avalanches are going to look like. These are much smaller than the big avalanches breaking on the weak layers near the ground, but it is something to keep in mind, particularly up in the Park Range and the Elkhead Mountains up near Steamboat, which are just picking up the most snow.
Okay, Brian, this is great. We really appreciate it. As usual, see you back in a week for another update. And of course, guys, go check out the website. Great website. It'll be at the bottom of your screen. All the maps and information are right on there. If you're traveling out, even if you're going somewhere you think is safe, take a look at this stuff, the forecast. Pay attention. Brian, thanks so much. And again, we'll see you back next week.
Yeah, sounds great. Have a good weekend.
Now, don't forget, you can always stay up to date with the latest forecast at colorado.gov/avalanche. Enjoy the backcountry, folks, but please be safe out there.